Today is May 15th. The Week 17 schedule has been released, and we say goodbye to the days of galaxy braining divisional matchups. Today, we are joined by a man who won $2 million by leveraging Week 17 correlation and the author of the original Week 17 article back in 2021. As the foremost experts on the space, we'll talk through our favorite ways to attack Week 17 and other ADP movement. This is ADP Chasing. Clearly doing a great job hosting. I hit the outro music instead of intro, but
and a little early.
It is. Yeah, a little early. People are already triggered by Week 17. We had to end the show immediately. But anyways,
that would be a good bit, actually.
Pat, Davis.
What happened to Davis here?
Yeah, doing a great job.
They kicked me out.
Yeah. Fellas, how are we doing? How was your weekend?
Doing good.
A lot of drafting.
Nice weather here. A lot of drafting. I did a lot of puppies last night. A lot of puppies.
I did a 5-mile walk with my dog and got 5 puppies knocked out while I did it. So
how many puppies? So it is 97% filled. The puppy.
Yeah, it's gonna fill today.
I'm tempted to do one right now. I gotta say.
What is your guys' optimal multi-table number for these drafts? 3.
If I'm 100% locked in, I can do 7. Optimal is probably 5, and 3. 3 is the perfect number of you don't need to be scrambling around. I'm not like 100% locked in terms of like bye weeks and Week 17 and everything yet. So I would not be doing 7 at a time right now. But in a month, I'll be able to do 7 at a time.
I don't think I can get past 4 without starting to make mistakes.
Yeah, for me, it's just without the Week 17 and playoff schedule stuff, I could do like 6 and be okay. But now, once you add that element in, that's where I'm just going to be so shitty at correlating for Week 17 if I have to multi-table that many.
Yeah.
I think.
Sam, you got like an eye patch thing going here with the banner up top. Can we remove that? Or?
Yeah, I can remove it. Yeah. But anyways, the Week 17 stuff is out. There's obviously a ton of
bye weeks are probably the biggest difference. Although,
they're not in the underdog system.
They're not in the underdog. And like, look, I love gambling, but I'm not going to memorize every team's bye weeks for the 4 days that the bye weeks are not available. So I maybe unknowingly have drafted dead teams, in the last 5 days or whatever. So hope not.
I was drafting the other day with the bye weeks up, but mostly just to make sure my quarterbacks weren't the same. I do think someone had a thread recently that was basically like, look, don't draft 2 quarterbacks in the same bye week.
Yeah, I think it was Neil Farley.
It was
maybe.
Neil,
yeah. I think his point, and to paraphrase it quickly, is oftentimes the difference between second and third place is like 10 to 20 points. And that's oftentimes what you're sacrificing when you take 2 quarterbacks for the same bye week. So I think it is one of those things where it's like a micro edge, and it's not going to kill every single team if you do it. But like, unless your stacks just line up so perfectly that it makes sense to do it, I'm avoiding it.
The one spot that I was really trying to make sure I wasn't doing it in is I took Hurts and then I pulled up the bye week. So I was like, okay, like if I'm taking Hurts, my backup quarterback is really just to help me advance, just to fill in a couple weeks
or to give you a weird team in Week 17.
Yeah, right. But the odds of that aren't great. So, and I was punting quarterback too. I wanted to get someone in like the 14th round or later. If you take like Tua or something, it's maybe a different story. But anyway, Stafford has the same bye week as Hurts. So I was just like, okay, I can't do Stafford. I have to build this team with a different kind of late quarterback too. But I think maybe if you have like two, like if I was to have like Herbert and someone in like the 9 through 10 range, maybe I would care like slightly less.
Okay, let me sell you on a combinatorial galaxy brain.
All right, let's do it.
Stacking two teams that have the same bye week and then taking a third quarterback is going to ensure super unique combinatorial ownership because other people are not doing that. So say you take a quarterback, a wide receiver, and a tight end from a team with a week 8 bye, and then you take another quarterback, wide receiver, and tight end from a team with a week 8 bye. You accept that in week 8 you're taking a 0 at tight end, but you add a third quarterback, a Baker, a Ritter, whoever, right? Will Levis.
Mac Jones. Mac Jones is going to be starting in week 8.
Sure. So if and when you get these teams to the playoffs, if that team advance, say quarterback A with the week 8 bye week has a bad week 16 game, and he's the really high advance rate player, but your quarterback B with the week 8 bye goes off for 28 and throws 2 touchdowns to the guys you stacked him with, then all of a sudden you have quarterback A in the final with like a mega low advance rate.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. And like the round 18 quarterback thing in general is kind of interesting because I think a lot of people get really caught up in the 2 versus 3 quarterback thing. And say you take Hurts and Pickett, and then you're staring at round 18, Mac Jones. A lot of people say that's stupid. You should never do that. And I kind of get their point. Like I'm largely going 2 quarterback if I take an elite one. But when you get into round 18, man, it's like you're staring at just guys that are going to just be dead roster spots at running back and wide receiver. And getting a starting quarterback, I don't think is like the worst way to spend your round 18 pick. Like, and back to the draft capital point that, Leone's talked about, Pat, you've talked about, that round 18 pick is worth like what, $1 in your auction drafts or something. Like, I don't think it's meaningfully changing your draft capital allocation if you toss on round 18 Mac Jones. And I did this with Mariota last year, and people say it's bad or whatever, but I advanced 2 teams to the finals, and one of them would not have made the finals if I didn't get Mariota's round 18 regular season points. So it's like, I don't know. It's like, I get the downside of it. There's obviously guys in round 18 that can give you more upside than some of these quarterbacks, but it's just like guaranteed points in some sense.
I think it's fine if you're playing to advance the team. Like to me, that's what a round 18 quarterback is most likely going to be good for. I agree that your chances of hitting on your 18th round pick are very low, but like there's decent odds that someone in the 18th round range is going to put up a really good score in week 15 or 16 or 17. And therefore, because of how impactful that is to just get points out of that spot, your advance rate for that player is going to be pretty massive. And so I think like skipping on that lotto ticket, there's like more opportunity cost than it might seem, because you're basically saying, I'm definitely not going to have the guy who powers teams through the single week elimination weeks. Now, if you get a guy who helps you advance there in the first place, that's a fair trade-off. But the odds that it's a quarterback who is one of those dudes, it's not 0. I mean, Jared Goff went off as a late round guy last year. So it can happen, but I think your chances are better at trying to find like a wide receiver running back.
Gino last year?
Yeah, Gino would have been would have been great.
So, Corinne, this is where I would say, it's a matter of what you're doing, because we're talking about advance rate versus binking. But, then you're doing the mental gymnastics of, well, yeah, sure. So let's say you take league winner X in round 18. You still kind of need him to score a lot of points in week 17, right? To kind of justify because if we're talking advance rate, Mac Jones is likely going to have a better advance rate or a similar advance rate in this scenario that we're talking about as league winner X in round 18, right?
Maybe.
Isn't it kind of functioning the same way?
Maybe, but like I guess what I'm saying is Mac Jones might help you advance to the playoffs, but his playoff performance is unlikely to be anything significant. Like even if Mac Jones has a good week in the playoffs, quarterbacks don't separate from other quarterbacks as well as the other positions. So like Mac Jones could have 25 for you and your other quarterback has 23, and it doesn't have a meaningful impact on your chances of getting through the playoffs.
The same thing is kind of true with your wide receiver 8 versus if you have a team that's good enough to advance to week 16 or whatever, you probably have 3 other high point scorers at wide receiver too, right?
Probably, but I mean, it's a more volatile position. And if you get a guy, I mean, you have to fill a flex as well. And if so, it's basically just one of these things of like, is there a guy in the 18th round range who scores 25 points in week 15, 16, or 17? Probably yes. So and if you and you could really benefit if you hit on that guy.
Know, this is kind of a mental trick that we play on ourselves with best ball too, because a lot of the guys that we conceive of as league winners, guys who were free, who scored a lot of points, are largely not drafted in these contests. We think about guys like Elijah Mitchell, right? He was not drafted the year he broke out. He was not, I want to say maybe he was drafted in like 15 total leagues. And then everyone remembers the Cordarrelle Patterson year, right? Cordarrelle Patterson, the year he totally was 18th round pick and blew up. He was on less than 10% of teams taken in Best Ball Mania. Like the guys we think are fantasy relevant at the end of drafts, round 17, round 18. A lot of those guys are guys who end up getting cut in the main event or whatever. So it is, I think those picks are a little, not to say obviously that if you had just taken Cordarrelle Patterson 150 times, like you would have supercharged your advance rate. You would have given yourself a great chance to win the stupid $1 million or whatever. But also the cost of going all in on one of those guys and getting it wrong too is also catastrophic.
It is catastrophic. Yeah. You don't want to do that.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where I think we're so far away from understanding what is GTO that I don't hate the round 18 quarterback, because round 18 quarterback starts 17 games. It's probably going to add points to your roster. It's probably going to help your advance rate, and it gets you live in week 17 in a unique way.
And I think you should still like be conscious of what I use the Jalen Hurts example maybe as an extreme. Like that's not really probably when I'm adding the 18th round quarterback to my roster. It's maybe more like you take Deshaun Watson in round 8 and Daniel Jones in round 11, and then you stacked up Tyquan Thornton and Juju, and then you're staring at Mac Jones round 18 versus like wide receiver like 80 off the board. At that point, I'm like, okay, you know what? I think it's still a fine draft capital allocation to spend another quarterback here. Maybe Max Jones doesn't give me the ceiling week that helps me win week 17. I think that's possible, but like Pat said, it's unlikely. But maybe, one of my other quarterbacks is banged up in week 15 and Mac Jones just gets me like 24 points and helps me get through. So
right.
That's where like I'm okay with it. And I think people, again, think of draft capital in terms of auction dollars. I don't think tacking on that third QB with your 18th round pick is really like overspending on quarterback as much as other people do. Again, like Pat said, I definitely see the points around. You don't want to do that every time. And like there are running backs and wide receivers there that separate that I certainly want stabs at. But like I think I'm maybe a little bit more inclined to do it than the average drafter.
My thinking on. So someone in the chat was saying I'm now turning my Chipsy Lark saying I was turning my back on 3 quarterback builds. I would say so if you're gonna do the 18th round quarterback, this is probably the time to do it because we are going to draft more dead roster spots this time of year.
100% agree with this point too.
So I don't want to push back on it too hard. I would say though, like my philosophy on 3 quarterbacks last year was if I'm going to do it, I'd really prefer to do it with 3 guys that I think do have upside. And that historically has been more like, you want to be drafting your 3rd quarterback still before like round 14. I drafted Daniel Jones in round 14. I think there's plenty of guys like Matt Stafford you can get in round 14. I think he has like weekly upside where you're drafting a guy who's going to help you advance, but also has like a realistic shot as a pocket passer probably of blowing up in an important week for you. And so I actually think if you're going to spend the 3, prioritize the 3rd a little bit and don't just make it your last round pick, because in that, like Mariota is someone that I was avoiding like the plague last year because I was like, he's getting benched. So his chances of adding to me in the playoffs are very, very low. That's just, and I don't want to take any of the job security guys.
Yeah, that's fair.
I want as many live roster spots for the playoffs as I can get.
Can we just figure out who the fuck Ryan Tannehill is playing for in week 17? This is not only plaguing me in best ball, but it's also plaguing me in Dynasty because I made a couple deals to trade for Ryan Tannehill. But like I'm starting to get, I did it in another league too. I'm starting to get worried that he's not going to be an Atlanta Falcon and is just simply going to be holding a clipboard while Will Levis, just is like making mistake after mistake. I think the primary thing that would keep Will Levis from throwing 3 interceptions per game while Tannehill looks on disgusted from the bench is that the division is so weak that I think it would be hard for them to just write the season off in week 8. And
Kevin Cole just did a breakdown of their schedule, and apparently it's much harder to begin the year. And so they could be like, I think it's through the first 6 games, it's really difficult. And then it lightens up a lot. So his thinking was they're going to be like 2-4. They bench Tannehill, and then Levis actually has a chance to look okay.
They got to win. The most mandatory game for them to win is going to be this week 5 game against the Colts. If they lose that game, it's just going to be Levis time.
Oh, God.
Because it'll be if they lose that game against the Colts, it'll be Tannehill will be gone.
So let me throw out another idea here with the 18th round pick, because I've been thinking through the same thing of like, all right, we're going to have issues finding these league winners. By the way, though, I did just pull up last year's semifinals advance rates. Zay Jones, 8.1% is the highest player. Jerick McKinnon was second highest at 6.3. Not to say like you're gonna be able to
drafted
of all players drafted of everybody. Those 2 players had the highest semifinals advance.
So that does highlight the value of finding a skill position player who scores a lot of points later.
It is massively valuable.
It's massive.
Yeah.
I don't disagree that it's massive. The part where I would disagree specifically on May 15th is our ability to identify.
Yes.
May 15th last year, people were not drafting Zay Jones. Maybe they were drafting McKinnon, but definitely not Zay Jones.
They were drafting McKinnon, I think, but
people might have been drafting Zay Jones. But I think we agreed that like I think by August we're gonna feel a lot better about these late round picks, just because we know who won the RB2 camp battle for the Cowboys. It's Ronald Jones and not Deuce. Like people are wasting picks on running backs and wide receivers right now that are gonna get Jalen Tolberted by August.
100%.
I mean? Like
that's
right. The thing. That's the thing.
Old enough to remember Jalen Tolbert being like an 11th round pick on Underdog.com.
Well, yeah. So the other thing I want to float is like, what about a third tight end?
Yeah.
This is my preferred way to build. I prefer having third tight ends to a third quarterback. One, because in a perfect world where you actually hit on multiples of them, they're available to put points in your flex. And even elite tight ends have bad weeks, right? Even Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews gonna have 4-point weeks. George Kittle's gonna have 4-point weeks. Kyle Pitts might not top 4 points all season. So there are going to be a lot of weeks, not a lot of weeks, but there are going to be some weeks where Hunter Henry easily makes your lineup and it's not close. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the thing that's really interesting too is I think in the current draft landscape, there reaches a point where like the tight ends just from a base projection, I think project way better in terms of points than the wide receivers do. Like you're looking at, I don't know, Hunter Henry versus fucking like Charlie Jones and Russell Gage. Like you're looking at Luke Musgrave versus Allen Robinson, Jelani Woods versus Richie James and Cedric Tillman. I don't know. And even
Tillman
like
I kind of like, but yeah, that might be.
Tillman is a good 18th round pick.
Yeah.
Either like I think it just reaches because of how much the wide receiver like tight ends are actually a little cheaper this year. At least
they're cheaper overall. Yeah,
and wide receivers are getting pushed up. So I think like I don't know, you're drafting slot only wide receivers versus starting tight ends at a certain point, like Gerald Everett versus Wan'Dale Robinson. Like I don't know, Gerald Everett.
Wan'Dale, easy baby. He's got that dog. He's got that dog in him, Sam.
The Giants' third slot receiver or starting tight end for Justin Herbert.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's interesting.
Tyler Conklin is a starting tight end. He's got an ADP of 196. Trey McBride, is a starter for, probably the whole year.
Conklin is only starting for as long as he will talk about the Twin Towers with Aaron Rodgers. The second he gets bored of that shit, we're talking like they're gonna bring. Isn't Mercedes Lewis on the Jets?
Is that a bit? That was put out as a bit so much over the offseason that I don't even know if it's true or not.
Tyler Conklin has a very long beard and a man bun. I think he's going to get along just fine with Aaron Rodgers. Okay.
Mercedes Lewis is a free agent. I would bet at even money he is on the Jets roster at some point.
I'm gonna go deep through CJ Ozoma's likes on Twitter and see what
he's
kind of
38. Mercedes Lewis is 38 years old, so he's the same age as Rodgers.
Wow. All right. Anyways, let's get this show on track a little bit. Should have done this up top, but we are gonna be doing ADP chasing on Mondays for the rest of the off season. I know the schedule's been kind of all up in the air the past couple weeks, but we're gonna do this. Try to lock in this time Mondays at noon Eastern time throughout the whole off season. We'll be joining you guys, and yeah, let's kick off with what we normally do, going through ADPs. I took a look at week 17 matchups to see how essentially I kind of want to answer the question, are week 17 matchups driving ADP movement? And what this chart is showing right here, I took the top 5 players from each. So look at Kansas City and Cincinnati, which shows up as the most expensive game stack. I took the top 5 players by ADP for Kansas City, the top 5 for Cincinnati, average their ADPs, and that's what's shown on this chart here on the gray bars. So you can see Kansas City and Cincinnati is the most expensive game stack to stack up for week 17. Obviously, the cheapest, you see teams like Tennessee versus Houston, New Orleans, Tampa Bay, etc. So I thought this was kind of an interesting way to look at it if you're trying to optimize for week 17. What kind of prices are you paying on these different games? So I think what I'll point out first is Kansas City, Cincinnati. That does seem to be the one that is getting steamed up. There's not huge ADP changes across any of these games, but the biggest riser is Kansas City and Cincinnati is up about 1 spot on average across the top 5 players in each of those teams. So that kind of makes sense to me. There's a lot of sort of secondary, tertiary pieces in those offenses that are easy to grab. And once you start that game stack, it kind of makes sense that drafters are just scooping them up.
The other thing about that one is if you have like Jalen Hurts, you're like, well, shit, maybe I'll take, Rashee Rice, Irv Smith, and Marcus Valdes-Scantling. And just like get that game in too. Like I've done that, and it's like, okay, well, Mahomes and Burrow had big games. I have Jalen Hurts or whatever. Like I'm fine. I'm going to be fine. So I've done stuff like that. It's like hard. You're not like alone as a Burrow or Mahomes drafter when you get into that range of the draft. Like everyone's like, ooh, Rashee Rice. That could be fun in like the 12th round or whatever.
Yep. I agree.
That's interesting. What's also interesting here that I'll point out, and so the purple bar or the purple lines in this chart are the average ADP of the expensive team, and the red bar is the average ADP of the cheap team in the game stack. So you look at 2 examples here, Arizona versus Philadelphia. Everyone is obviously all in on Philadelphia's offense, but people are sticking far away from Arizona with Kyler's injury. That's kind of an interesting one where I think you can get a lot of Arizona's pieces if you want.
Kyler 3 quarterback teams: Hollywood Brown, wide receiver 37, Trey McBride, tight end 27, and then Kyler comes back like week. Kyler comes back, I think Rondale's wide receiver 74. Kyler comes back in week 9, and you have 2 other quarterbacks. Let's say you took Justin Herbert and Mac Jones just to keep your head above water, and then all of a sudden you have this supercharged Arizona team. It's pretty interesting.
That one's interesting. Yeah.
What do you think?
Does Kyler play though?
Is it too thin to do like a quarterback with a late bye week and Kyler? Or are you burning your advance rates too much? Because I like the idea, like if you're taking a second, or we talked about the 3 quarterback build, you do still want ceiling out of that 3rd quarterback, and Kyler definitely does fit that. Unfortunately, he has a week 14 bye, which really sucks. You're also losing that week from him as well.
I think honestly, back to our conversation at the top, the week 18 quarterback pairs really well with Kyler, just in the sense of getting a guy who's going to give you points in the regular season. I get that it's maybe not perfect for the playoffs, but if Mac Jones is going to be valuable for your roster, it's probably on a team like where you have Kyler Murray, maybe where you have a rookie quarterback that's struggling early in the year. I kind of see that. I think it is tough. If you're going 2 quarterbacks with Kyler, I think it's got to be one of the elite guys, right? Like it's probably got to be one of the top 5 guys.
Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and Justin Fields all have week 13 buys.
Seems doable.
Yeah, so you're at least not getting their bye week until Kyler's back. If he's not back, you shouldn't have taken him and you might be sunk. But then he's got a week 14 bye. So that those 2 guys or 3 guys, I guess, Lamar, Allen, and Fields would be like the dudes I'd be most interested in pairing, I suppose.
Yeah. The other one I'll throw out, and then interested what you guys think, but I think the Josh Allen stuff is a lot more interesting when you don't consider his price in a vacuum, but consider A, not like who he plays in week 17, and B, the number of like secondary, tertiary pass catchers you can get on the Bills for fairly cheap.
Allen and Mahomes are the same deal this year, where you can take them. Let's say the Diggs drafter passes on Allen or the Kelsey drafter passes on Mahomes for whatever reason, and you randomly get like a really good price on them. You can be like, all right, well, I'm going to fill this out rounds 10 through 18. Like you could take Dawson Knox really late. You can take MVS really late. You can take Deontay Hardy with your last pick, Richie James with your last pick. Like there are a lot of different ways to do that. I think in ways where you would not have felt confident about that with Josh Allen last year.
Yeah, because you don't have Gabe Davis in the 3rd round. Now he's in the 7th. Even
it's
Dalton
easy,
Kincaid is
James
I think,
Cook
cheaper.
You can do too.
Yeah, I think Kincaid is cheaper than Knox was last year, even. So it's and then you look at the Patriots, and you can get, say what you want about Juju. Maybe you don't like Juju, but pick your pass catcher. Pick one of their tight ends. I like Hunter Henry. I like Tyquan Thornton. Like there's some interesting bringbacks you can get for absolutely dirt cheap on the Patriots that I think project pretty well given their cost. So
I've taken Juju, which means he's not egregiously priced. If I'm taking him, I think he's total dust. But yeah, especially like wide receiver dries up, and if you've taken an elite quarterback, you didn't have a 2nd round wide receiver pick. So you might be a little thinner at wide receiver. I've taken Juju. I think it's like my wide receiver 5, where I was like, this is gross, but I kind of got locked out. I could probably use the points early on in the season, and then I'm going to keep, I'm going to prioritize wide receiver for the rest of the draft a little bit more than I would have. But yeah, I mean, it's like, he's probably not like Juju's probably not a good week 17 pick, because I don't know like how he's even going to be like running in week 17.
What week is Juju a good
like week 3? Week 3 is when I want Juju. When's the first week 5? That's when the bye week's in. I'm like week 5. Come on, Juju.
Here's the thing. I don't have any wide receivers in that range other than one guy. I have 43% Elijah Moore at this point. I'm not
that into Elijah Moore, man.
How do I click anyone else's name?
I mean, I'm clicking all the other names.
What's the difference?
His routes aren't assured, and he was bad last year.
I don't care. I literally do not care. I really don't.
So the Moore stuff is interesting because if you look at his like targets per route run stuff last year, it was like bottom 5 of all wide receivers that ran above like 200 routes. Like it was Gabe Davis territory. I think like worse than Gabe Davis territory. But then you look at his charting stuff, like Matt Harmon, reception perception, didn't see a huge fall off in Moore's actual like route running success rates last year. And also he was amazing as a rookie. So
that totally fits with the narrative that he and Zach Wilson just hated each other.
I'm willing to give him a little the benefit of the doubt on some of his stats last year, but it's still, I think you do have to admit it's uncertain on his talent. I think I'm probably in the middle.
I don't think it's uncertain on his talent.
He was wide receiver 56 in open score. Wide receiver 56. It's not like he wasn't horrific. He's actually between Mike Evans and Cooper Kupp. So, he's probably fine, but he is like a smaller guy. So like the ability to get open is probably
I just don't. I
important.
like for him to turn into like a rotational bench wide receiver for the Cleveland Browns at 23 years old, his rookie year would have to be like an all-time mirage, which is not to say that it's not. It does happen, right? I mean, Juju was so good those first 2 years. Look how we were just talking about him. The Buccaneers guy, Michael Clayton, right? 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns as a rookie. Never heard from him again. It's not to say that it doesn't happen, but it seemed, especially because other teams were interested in him, right? This is not like Denzel Mims, where he hung around as a depth guy forever, even though the Jets tried to trade him. Like, they found a trade partner for him. That to me is also kind of interesting.
But to wash out of the team that spent a second-round pick on you in 2 years is a major red flag. I mean, Anthony Miller comes to mind as a dude who just like washed out.
God damn it. This is the game we've been playing. We've just been sending each other like awful comps for players, like just like guys who exist. Like what was the last one we did? Jalen Tolbert. So like Jalen Tolbert just had the two most recent things when you search for him are worked out with Dak in like Cuba or whatever or Costa Rica. and that he's on the roster bubble. And then the last message Terrain sent me is, I asked him, is Danny Gray alive? And Pat just said he's Talon Wallace West, which is just like damning him to hell. Like Danny Gray doesn't exist. So
Danny Gray. I had some 18th round Danny Gray last year. I think I had a tweet that it was the most theoretical of all best ball picks that I've ever made in my life. 18th round Danny Gray.
I mean, it was pretty good theoretical.
You had to get those Trey Lance stacks, dude. I mean,
exactly.
I did that a bunch.
Any other teams, guys, that are jumping out here? Or any? Did you want a final word on?
I just want to Elijah Moore. Okay. I do think that the reason that I'm having trouble mustering like more excitement is that I do think he's slot only there because they drafted Cedric Tillman, who's like big bodied X type, and they also have Donovan Peoples-Jones, who's a big body deep threat guy.
Isn't Cedric Tillman just the pick so that they don't have to pay DPJ though? Isn't that sort of
maybe? But Amari Cooper is also an outside wide receiver as well. So there's like the fact that if it was just DPJ or just Tillman, I'd be like, well, if Moore's good, he'll be able to play in 2 wide receiver sets. But there's both of them and Amari. I'm just like, I don't know that he's playing in 2 wide receiver sets. So now I'm looking at maybe like 75% route rate on top of all the talent questions, which I think are up in the air. Like he could still be very
75% route rate, dude. Kadarius Toney would bite your arm off for a 75%.
We have more on that
later.
He's
a third round pick with a 75% route rate.
I mean, by the way, just real quick, while we're looking at these game stacks, last thing, I mean, how much less attractive did the Bills become knowing that they're playing, that this is their Week 17 game? Like it's as bad as it could have been. I think like this is going to be a bad football game.
I don't know, man. They could beat up on the Patriots. They've done it.
What's the total for that game going to be though? Outdoor January game between the Patriots and the Bills.
It's ugly. I just think the cost of the Pats is so. No. It's not going to be 37. It's going to be close.
I said 47.
Oh, I thought you said 30.
My gut was if it's outdoors, if it's 17 degrees in the northeastern United States, it's going to be like a 44.5 total.
We'll see how Max
weather will play a role. Weather
will definitely play a role.
I'll want to throw out there is I look at these. My favorite game is Giants Rams. I actually think both these teams as a whole in a vacuum are underpriced in best ball. Daniel Jones, I think, is underpriced. He ran for 700 yards last year, got a huge, say what you want about his wide receivers. They're not amazing, but it's a huge upgrade from what he was dealing with last year, adding Hyatt, adding Waller.
Waller helps.
I mean, who knows what I think like last year was, it can't get worse than last year. And he still was a great pick in fantasy. He's going pretty cheap. Anyways, I like that game. I like that shootout potential there with the Dable Giants and Matthew Stafford somewhat bouncing back to 2021 form. And it's, the third cheapest out of all games next to New Orleans, Tampa Bay, Tennessee, Houston. Like I could see that actually having a pretty high, we flip over the cards on Week 17. And I think that game could have a sneaky high over under if those teams play to their ceiling. So I like that one quite a bit. Any other games you guys want to talk about here, or we'll be tracking this throughout the season? But
I'll throw out one more. I do like the call on the Rams and the Giants a lot. I will throw out Washington and San Francisco as a team where it's like, just don't guess the quarterbacks. Just take the pieces.
Sure.
It's like
Take
San Francisco.
take Jalen Hurts and then stack the rest of the game.
Yeah. Like this
that's
game
interesting.
could have points, especially if San Francisco is just beating up on Washington, and then Washington has to throw to save face. And maybe they have Bieniemy as the coach at that point, and they're willing to just lean on the pass.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. And I think both those any team that has an uncertain quarterback situation, the player ADPs are just repressed because of that. We saw that with Carolina, Indianapolis, Houston. Those teams are still cheap now, but Nico Collins, just by knowing who his quarterback is now, has shot way up. Alec Pierce, just because we know who his quarterback is, has shot way up. So any team that has an uncertain QB, people are afraid to take them. I think the prices on Washington and San Francisco will remain pretty cheap because of that for a while. So that's an interesting one to game stack without the quarterback for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's talk. Let's move on to the biggest risers from this past week. So we're looking at the largest ADP risers from May 10th to today, May 15th. We have on the list Alexander Mattison as the biggest riser, up 12 spots. Then Christian Watson, Irv Smith, Van Jefferson, Kadarius Toney, Jaden Reed, Jerick McKinnon, Rashee Rice, Mike Evans, and Rashad Bateman. I think the first thing that clearly jumps out here is we have 3 Chiefs and 1 Bengals player. So back to that previous chart, people are targeting that game. I want to start with the Kadarius Toney conversation. He's maybe the guy who's got the most buzz over the past week or so on fantasy Twitter. So I want to just lay out the case for Toney. I made this quick visual here. I think the central case with Toney is you look at the left-hand side of this page here. Toney's per route numbers are just off the charts. Yards per route run, 2.15, 2.14. He's top 15 in yards per route run each of the past 2 years. And
5 routes in the Super Bowl.
That's what got me too. It's like 5 routes in the Super Bowl.
Exactly. It's
5 routes in the Super Bowl, but he was 1 arm tackle away from winning Super Bowl MVP. If he scored that punt return, dead ass, he would have.
Yeah, and his routes, like, I think the people don't quite realize his routes scaled down. Like, he kind of actually hit a peak like towards the end of the regular season, peak being like 30% route rate, and then it got worse.
It was more than that. So I've got a little bit of insight. I think I know why they did this. I think I sort of understand the Chiefs' thought process here, because I think from the outside, people are like, the Chiefs are getting nothing from these guys. They're getting nothing from Justin Watson. They're getting nothing from Sky. How is it possible they trade this 3rd round pick? And I think basically they looked at Kadarius Toney and they were like, dude, you are a mess. You are always hurt. You're always arguing with your coaches. You were a 1st round pick. They gave up on you immediately. They traded you to us for a late 3rd round pick. My guess is the thought went something like this. Let's get him into an off season in our strength and conditioning protocol. Let's have, because the Chiefs have a really good strength and conditioning team. They've worked through it, they do this with McKinnon, right? They keep McKinnon on ice until it's time to use him. And I think they're just like, anything we get out of Toney this year is a bonus at this point. I think after he got hurt in that Jaguars game, they're like, we cannot count on this guy. We can't game plan around him. We can't function like he's going to be here. So let's just get to the offseason and deal with it then. That is my rose-colored glasses view on why they chose to use him that way. That could be totally fan fiction, but that is my guess.
I think it's plausible. I think that the fact that he ran 5 routes in the Super Bowl undermines that argument a bit.
I agree.
Also, 3 routes in the AFC Championship game does not help the cause.
No,
here.
it really doesn't.
I think
but 2 targets on 3 routes. Probably more targets than Sky in that game.
Yeah, I think what the Chiefs maybe are doing is they're like, we're going like sub package. Like we're gonna have guys like maybe none of these guys is gonna do anything for us like over the course of an entire season or the course of an entire game. They're not gonna be like, but they're gonna like we're gonna have plays for all of these guys, like so that when they're
that's
out
what
on the
they did
field.
after Hardman got hurt. It was like they'd have the Marcus Kemp stuff, they'd have the Jody Fortson stuff. Like the Chiefs would routinely be playing 9 tight ends and wide receivers in a game, which like most
Right.
people cap out at like 7. Like it would
Exactly.
be yeah.
And this is Andy Reid's deal, right? This is all he wants to do is come up like, oh, Andy, like, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to stay another 2 hours tonight and come up with like plays for Rashee Rice now. He's like, oh, fuck yeah. That's all. That's why they keep drafting guys so they can keep doing it. So I would be surprised personally if we saw Kadarius Toney. Like if he ran like 85 to 90% of the routes this year, I'd kind of be shocked. Like I'd be truly
he
shocked.
probably has the worst downside case of any player outside of injury going in the top 100 picks, right? Where he just straight up is healthy all season and just does not get used.
Yeah. I mean, 50 to 60% would be like a big boost and still kind of a disaster at this rate. I mean,
at this cost,
depending on touchdown variance, right? Like he could totally get there with touchdown variance, but that's like very slim.
Antonio Brown in that year with Brady, I think he had about a 70% route rate. So if Toney was in that type of role, then I'm going to look real silly because he'll crush in that type of role. But I do think like that's what you're like praying that he's kind of Antonio Brown level usage in like his last good year with the
easy game, right?
And the thing is, I mean, we do the big thing is that, you know, say what you want about Juju, maybe he's dust. He had a pretty big stranglehold over the slot role last year.
Right.
I don't have the route numbers. He's gone. Like I think it's going to be him or Sky going into the slot, right? Like I guess maybe Richie James has an outside chance of winning that job, but like I think it's kind of a 2-man competition. And
I'm putting my money on. I don't think it's Sky.
I think multiple guys are playing in the slot.
Yeah,
I think that's our most likely outcome.
I think Pat's right. I think it's like Toney, Sky, Richie James, freaking Cornell Powell back from the dead. Like literally.
Well, Rashee Rice will play some in the slot too, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I think they led the league in 12 personnel last year.
That's the hidden thing, though, is that Noah Gray is going to play 60% of their snaps.
Yeah. Toney to me has been a tough click. It's like I better have Mahomes. I really better have Mahomes. Because I'm like, I don't know. I mean, this is like I've often been like guys like, screw it, I'm just drafting the guy who I think's super talented, and Toney fits that bill. But like, how does he play? I'm like, it's a lot to pay for a guy. I'm like, are we sure he's playing? Like he combined for 8 routes in the last 2 games we saw. That's a major problem.
I'm just living a little.
Yeah,
you know,
okay.
I don't care. I don't care because the theoretical upside, the rose-colored glasses, he plays, you know, a huge majority of the passing downs is you have a guy who can easily score 280 half PPR points or whatever.
Who runs more routes, Kadarius Toney or Jameson Williams?
Tony.
Collectively on the season?
I'm
Tony.
I'm feeling bearish. I'm feeling bearish on Jameson Williams. I'm feeling pretty bearish.
It's probably Toney, but
it's probably Toney, but it's still close. Like these route numbers are so bad. When I was digging them up, I was like, this is worse than I remembered. I don't know, man. Like the 5 routes in the Super Bowl is the targets for route run. Yeah. And it's like the targets for route run stuff. Yeah, sure. He got 6 targets on 12 routes. Like, good job, I guess, but it's 12 routes. Like, I don't know.
Well, that is the thing too. Like when targets per route run I love it. It's a great stat, but like if you get a screen route, if you get like one target that's designed to go to you, it's going to spike your targets per route run in a small sample. So, and Toney is that guy. Like he is the dude you bring on to get him the ball.
He probably didn't know. Yeah, he didn't know the whole playbook. So they're like, "Hey, we have like 6 plays for you. When you're out there, you're the primary target on half the plays that you're out there." So like, it's so biased by that I think he's a good talent, but like people citing these yards per route run, targets per route run, like they're not going to scale. They're not going to scale. Yeah,
they might scale like somewhat, but it's like one of those things where he'll still drop a lot, but
we got
a comment that he's so unique because he can bury you in both directions, which is like, I do not want to be out on Toney. Toney could bury me but I do plan to be underweight on Toney. I just don't want to be like, I'd like to be like 5% Toney. That's like, I think my target on him.
And to be fair, the wide receiver.
Does that mean you only have 5% Mahomes?
No, I just am not going to like reach for Toney because Mahomes is so easy to stack. I want to be overweight. I think I've gotten to the point where I think I do actually want to be overweight these top 3 quarterbacks. I think you can do it.
I can already stare into a crystal ball and see my future of why I don't win $1 million because I do Kelsey Mahomes about twice as frequent as I do Diggs and Allen, and it's week 17 and it's not snowing in New England, and Stephon Diggs has 29 and half PPR points. Josh Allen runs for 2 touchdowns, and Kelsey and Mahomes already have the division wrapped up, so they just spend the whole game handing off to Isaiah Pacheco and running screens for Jody Fortson, and I have nothing left.
Yeah, I do. I think, you want to be mixing up, but like in the big board, I was way underweight the top 3 guys, but that's Anthony Richardson was free to begin that. And then when he like spiked up, he was still going like the 12th round. And Lamar Jackson was going on like the 4th, 5th. So there was multiple ways to get, really strong quarterback production potentially for way cheaper. And I don't like Lamar's like an early 3rd round pick now. There's just not, obviously Richardson's super expensive compared to where he was. So I'm like, am I just going to be out on these elite quarterbacks who've had incredible advance rates recently? And I know the cost is a lot higher, but I don't know. I think I want to be overweight slightly at least.
That is one of my most interesting things. Like if I could stare into a crystal ball, is like, what is the increased cost of the expensive quarterbacks due to their advance rates? Because this time last year, you could take Mahomes in the 5th fucking round. Like, I don't these guys in the 5th round. It's like Mike Evans or Patrick Mahomes. Like, literally, I do not have to think. I don't have to process that at all. I know exactly who.
Well, Evans was a 2nd round pick, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
this year he's a 5th.
I don't even know. Yeah.
So if you look, if you look at the math of like, and there's different versions of this, but Hayden does a good one with like better and best ball points. I think if you look at that and say, the quarterbacks this year separate in the same way that they did last year, I think they're fairly priced, or maybe even like very slightly underpriced where they are now. But I think you do have to consider that like last year's sort of middle class of quarterbacks were way worse than they've been in prior years from a points per game standpoint. Like I looked at something where, Geno was the quarterback 9 last year at like 18 points per game. You look at the last 5 years, every other quarterback 9 was like up at 20. So it's a small difference, right? It doesn't stand out to us as massive, but if some other quarterbacks just play a little bit better, then Mahomes, Hurts, and Allen don't even have to play worse for them to be less valuable, if that makes sense. So I don't know. I'm kind of like coming around to them a little bit. I don't think I'm going to be overweight them, but like I am definitely not hard fading them in the way I was in early drafts. It's, especially if their prices stick, and I think they are pretty sticky at this point.
I have seen them in the puppy fall a little bit to like the early 3rd, and so that's making me wonder if maybe they'll fall a little bit, but I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm not super upset if my early Best Ball Mania drafts are a little bit weighted toward elite quarterback, and then if they fall, like then it becomes way easier. Then I'm overweight elite quarterback in my portfolio. Like great. It's been quite good recently. So
I don't think it's like a terrible and like we said, their floor is like mid 3rd. So like you maybe worst case scenario you're losing a little ADP value, but I kind of like doubt they drop that far. So
and I'm okay to like kind of catch the value there. So,
Let's talk Mattison. He shows up at the top riser here. This one's a little weird to me because there hasn't been any hard news on Cook, but there's been some like rumors about Cook being a post-June 1st cut.
It's just a continuation of the rumors and how gross the range is. It's not any specific thing. It's like I've fallen victim to this where I'm like, Javonte Williams with the bum ACL, Zach Charbonnet, it just like Mattison is like, he could be a starting running back, or you have like a nut handcuff. Like Mattison every year for the last 5 years has had at least like 3 games of 25 or more PPR points just because Cook will miss a couple games, it's kind of like clicking Pollard there, that's sort of what it feels like, or what Pollard used to be.
Yeah.
Well,
Pat, your thoughts on Mattison at this price?
I've actually had a hard time, and like Pat Thorman's been tweeting about Mattison like for like months. It feels like just like, guys, what are we doing? This dude's probably starting running back. Like, let's draft him. And he's been right. But I've had a hard time with Mattison just because like I don't think Madison's like that good. I don't think he's bad, but he's kind of like a guy who like, are they seriously? I mean, maybe the money says yes, that they're just like, we're going to cut.
Fucking
Cook
franchise tagged him.
I thought they gave him a deal.
No, they franchise tagged him, right?
Madison?
I think they gave him a deal.
No.
But it's good. It's like they paid him.
He got the fourth most guaranteed
year,
money of any running back. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just behind
$2 million deal.
Yeah.
Just behind Jamal Williams, Montgomery, Miles Sanders. So Madison got money that was
he got Chase Edmonds
more.
Money.
He got, yeah, that's fair, but he got more than like the Mostert, Singletary, Wilson, McKinnon. Like,
right.
If you look at his contract, like Minnesota clearly does value him with this type of guaranteed money.
Right.
Whether that translates to him being
and they never
good.
And I mean never give the ball to their third running back, right? Does not matter who it is. They did 1 year when Mike Boone was there, like one game Mike Boone got in, but Kene Nwangu, Dwayne McBride, like these guys are like, if Dalvin Cook is not out there, Mattison is getting 19 carries, 4 catches in every goal line carry.
Yeah, probably. It's tough because we only have 1 year with this coaching staff.
Yeah.
So it's tough to say like he'll get used, but he was used last year, like in that
institutional memory, bro.
I don't know if it works like that. I don't know whatever.
It kind of does to me. It kind of does to me. Like I kind of think it'll work that way until they give me a reason to believe otherwise. To be honest.
Yeah. I've come around on Mattison though. I've like, yeah, I don't think he's that great.
I don't like this price that much.
Yeah. It feels anytime he's like available past ADP though, I'm like, I should do this. I should get exposure.
Yeah, I was taking him a lot. I think at this price now, I don't know. Like, what are actually the odds that Cook gets cut at this point? Like the post June one,
I think.
You think they're high? So this is where I don't understand something.
I don't get it either, Sam.
The post June 1 thing, like you can designate guys post June 1 cuts before June 1st. Like that's what happened to Zeke. Like he was designated a post June. So like people are saying, they're just gonna wait till June 1st and then he's gonna get cut. Like they could designate Cook a post June 1st cut now. Like that's not, unless I'm wrong about that. I'm pretty sure I'm right about this. So
you're not. You are not wrong.
So that's why I'm just like people are kind of, I think, misunderstanding that. So it's like, what is gonna cause Cook to get cut from here until June 1st? Like I don't.
Maybe you won't get. So apparently Fowler. This is a Rotoworld had this that Fowler said. He's been told that the Vikings want to, quote, do right by Dalvin Cook and want him to go to a place where he can be happy, where he can play and be happy. So what I think they might be doing is just like hanging on. They're like, we don't have to cut him until after June 1st anyway. Let's see if a starter goes down somewhere, then we can trade Cook there. That's great for us. That's great for him.
Sure.
And then we can all kind of be happy and move on. Where I don't know, maybe worst case scenario in their minds, they would just keep Cook and play him. But I think if anyone gets hurt and is interested in Cook, like the Vikings are jumping at that.
That's the thing, right? Is that I think a trade is more likely than like they don't have an incentive to just outright cut him unless they're just cheap and don't want to physically hand him the cash. Like I don't think cap wise they really are incentivized to do that anymore. So yeah, I guess it's a question is does a trade materialize for him? I guess I see some potential landing spots, but I would handicap the odds of him being on the Vikings at, I think 50. I call it close to 50-50. I don't know if you guys disagree. So
I'd say less. But I think it's a good point that he probably won't get cut. But I would say probably less just because, guys get hurt in training camp.
Yeah. So if you think it's less, then I'm kind of surprised that you're not in on Mattison at that. Like if you think
I kind of regret it. I feel like I kind of missed the boat. And I don't want to like chase him up, but I do feel like I was wrong on Mattison and it should have had more. And I do want to mix him in now, even at this price, because I am underweight and I'm like, that looks pretty bad. So let me make sure I'm mixing him in, even though the price has gone up a bit.
Mm-hmm. Got it. That makes sense. Another guy I want to talk about with you guys is Christian Watson. I don't think we've touched on him a lot so far this offseason. He's up 2 spots to 42 overall, going behind guys like Amari Cooper, but now ahead of guys like DeAndre Hopkins, Drake London, DJ Moore. I think he's passed. So There's like a micro Toney narrative with Watson, I think, where the target per route run, yards per route run stuff is really high. He was not running all the routes. Obviously, was running more than Toney was, but there's a little bit of that narrative with him. So, yeah, curious, Davis, in this Jordan Love offense, how have you been treating Christian Watson?
So, like, on one hand, it both feels insane, right? It just like objectively feels insane for a guy who basically ran touchdowns for 8 games to go this high. But then to me, I find myself clicking him a lot because I look at the guys around him. One, it's like stack partners for these guys are kind of hard. So like Amari Cooper, I don't love paying that price on Deshaun Watson. Calvin Ridley, fine. Like obviously question marks there. Don't love paying that price tag on Trevor Lawrence. And then DJ Moore, I'm like completely out on at this price. I'm not going to have any of him at wide receiver 20. Don't really love Mike Williams or Keenan Allen. Don't really like DeAndre Hopkins because of the stack partner. Don't really like Drake London because of the stack partner. Don't really like Terry McLaurin because of the stack partner. And it literally goes on and down to Michael Pittman at wide receiver 28 before I find a stack partner that I like. And so I'm looking at that range and I'm like, yeah, shit, I'm just going to take Christian Watson because Jordan Love's quarterback 21 feels like a totally appropriate price. That can be my second quarterback. I can take Romeo Doubs for a double stack in like the 15th round. Easy peasy. So it's like, I don't even love Christian Watson, but just for structural reasons, it just makes a lot of sense is really what it comes down to.
That's fair. Pat, what are you thinking about Watson?
I'm in the same boat. And when I get to, and I'm thinking about who I'm taking, I'm like, it's pretty easy for me to imagine Christian Watson having a really big week in the playoffs. That's like his archetype. And so it's like as a tiebreaker sort of thing. I am kind of into him. He's interesting because he like really overperformed his volume compared to the first read targets that he had last year as well, which has been something that is really good if you're like a number one wide receiver, you want to do that because you're never going to like the first read targets alone aren't going to get you to an elite status. You need to be more efficient than that. You need to earn additional targets and when you're not the first read, that's like kind of what a superstar wide receiver can do. But it also makes it like a little less, like a little more concerning that he's like kind of got this flash in the pan thing going on where like he wasn't actually like a huge part of the offense. He wasn't getting a ton of first read targets. He wasn't getting a ton of routes. So like, which is he? Is he a star who can overperform volume, or is he a guy who got really hot and now his quarterback's gotten way worse? So,
or was it just Aaron Rodgers forcing them to design targets for Randall Cobb and Allen Lazard?
Well, that might be too. Yeah, maybe his routes are going to spike way up now that Rodgers is gone. So
I see your point, though. Yeah,
yeah. He's one of these guys where like it is kind of Toney is sort of a good comparison, except I'm more in on Watson. Like I don't think he's a smash where he's going, but the upside makes him very viable where he's going, and there's lots of other red flags in this area. One guy I'd kind of go to bat for a little bit is Terry McLaurin. Where maybe not over like Watson, but I just think in general, like it's like, again, you don't need to know who the quarterback is. He has 2 outs to decent quarterback play. And I think he could be someone that we're like looking back on, like, why weren't we taking more of him with, kind of a clear, like downfield ability and shown the ability over many years to earn targets and isn't old.
Yeah, I like McLaurin. I mean, I think McLaurin, you just pencil him in for 1,100 yards and 6 to 8 touchdowns. And like, if he doesn't get injured, like it's hard to see how he doesn't get that, in my opinion. But it doesn't, I think there's a little bit of like boring player who's been good for a while that we're just a little bit bored of thing going on with McLaurin. And even Keenan Allen, you can make that case.
Keenan Allen's another guy I like too. Yeah.
I like, that was the 2 names I pushed back on Davis's list where I like Keenan Allen. I like McLaurin. If ADP made me.
How many games in Keenan Allen's career has he gotten to 20 half PPR points? Honest to God.
I think a lot. I think his weekly upside's a little underrated. I don't have that on hand, Davis, but I think like he's had plenty of games where he smashes.
I sleep like a fucking baby at night knowing that I have no Keenan Allen. Like honestly. Keenan Allen, there will be a lot of reasons why I don't win Best Ball Mania 4, but not having Keenan Allen is not going to be one of them.
So I would check out Kyle had a tweet thread or a tweet about Keenan Allen, Kyle Dvorak recently, and I don't have it on hand, but he was pacing for like a legit wide receiver 1 season last year when he was healthy. Like he was straight up just, I mean, yeah, you can say the injury concerns thing, whatever. Like
It's not even.
he was balling when he was healthy.
He's 31,
Yeah.
and now they're not going to have the dink and dunk 4.8 YPA offense. It just, I get it. I'm not saying you shouldn't take Keenan Allen. I'm not saying people who are over the weight, like it's a really easy click there at that turn. You take her. Actually, I think the smart thing is, and I bet this will be reflected in ADP at some point, is you actually take Herbert first, and then you get your choice. If you kind of have a turn pick there, then you get your choice out of Keenan or Mike, instead of leaving your dickhead opponents the option of taking Herbert after you take Keenan. Because let me tell you, nothing worse than taking Keenan and then having Herbert snipe from you.
It's fine. You can do the Broncos thing on the other side. Even if you don't go Russ, you just stack that game up.
Yeah.
And also
I don't want to be naked Herbert. What am I getting? Quentin Johnson 10 picks ahead of ADP?
I actually kind of like
Quentin Johnson. Everett. What odds can I get?
I like Gerald Everett. Okay, too. Yeah.
What odds can I get on Quentin Johnson more fantasy points weeks 9 through 17 than Keenan Allen?
Oh man, I would bet that. I'd bet that with you. That's not gonna.
Well, Keenan Allen. Okay, wait. We might
give me a fair. Give me a like someone give me a number, and I'll let you know if I think it's bettable or not.
I would give, I don't know, 3-1 odds.
I was thinking 4-1 felt bettable.
4-1.
Because Keenan is the wide receiver 24 and QJ is the wide receiver 43, I think.
Yeah, but you didn't say over the season. You're getting the rookie thing. You're getting the rookie coming on.
Let me just say that if
we were only drafting for weeks 9 through 17, the gap would be way less in their ADPs.
Fair.
Come on, Keenan Allen is just so much better than Quentin Johnson. I'm not. TCU.
Do you guys realize that Keenan Allen had 2 separate 19 target weeks in 2020? That's
what I'm saying. He's like he's I don't know. If this
is like talking about Jamison Crowder with Leone. It's like I know what he's saying. It's like I know what he's saying is right, but I just do not care. Like you can't make me care. Like it is my right as an American to not care about Keenan Allen.
I can't argue with that. Let's talk. Let's see who's on here that we haven't talked about. Mike Evans,
Rice, and McKinnon.
McKinnon and Rice, we've talked about those guys a lot. I mean,
that's true. Yeah.
Is the story a little obvious? That's just the Cincinnati thing. Also, the McKinnon, like, I think it's a little bit of the McKinnon news is still not fully baked in. Maybe let's talk McKinnon. Like, what is his like settling ADP? He's at 130 right now, still behind guys like Gibson, Elijah Mitchell, Jamal Williams, Khalil Herbert, Damian Harris.
He can't rise too much more than this, can he? This seems
Yeah. I was going to say like maybe 12 spot, 10 spots higher. I would probably take him over Jamal Williams.
I would too.
I'd take him over Gibson and Herbert. I wouldn't take him over Eli Mitchell. I wouldn't take him over Damian Harris. It seems like his rise has got to stop pretty soon.
And it's sort of done with like the implicit understanding that you're knowing that like this guy's not playing the first 2 months of the season, really. You know, like we all sort of acknowledge that. And they still might be one of these teams that gets Zeke or Dalvin Cook or Leonard Fournette or whoever, you know.
Right.
Yeah. And the thing is with him that's interesting is like I think from a individual weekly ceiling standpoint, the quarterback running back stacks I don't really like, but with Mahomes and McKinnon, I kind of like that a lot. Like he had some huge receiving games last year in Mahomes spike week. So the McKinnon 6 catches, 80 yards and 2 touchdowns game, I think still exists. So he's a pretty interesting stack partner with Mahomes from that standpoint. But yeah, I don't think he should rise too much more than this.
I don't think so either. I'm actually behind ADP now in my ranks. Not a ton, but yeah.
Got it. All right, I'll give you guys the floor. Any other names of guys you want to either make the case for here or say they're way too high? Otherwise, let's move on to the fallers.
I don't really like Bateman, but I get it.
I do like Bateman, but
you want him in the auction league? Oh, no, I don't have him. Never mind. Different league.
I think I have
getting
him.
Confused. I'm trying to sell him.
Let's talk fallers here. Again, we say on the show, we're market movers. Jonathan Taylor is down again. After I fudded him, even though I've taken him in like 30% of my BBM teams so far.
You actually are doing what touts always get accused of.
Yeah, what's the opposite of pumping? What's the opposite of pump and dump? I don't know. Whatever that is, the opposite of that, I'm doing that with Jonathan Taylor.
Is it
Fud and scoop?
I'm fud and scooping Taylor because, again, week 17 correlation. I invented the concept. I won't go into that in too much detail, but the Raiders are playing the Colts. The Raiders are playing the Colts in week 17. So you take Devontae, take Taylor, but yeah, not a lot of names here that like kind of make sense. I guess Allen is the interesting one we should talk about. We did kind of say last show, if any of the quarterback ADPs were going to fall, Allen is the one that makes sense with the stack partners with the week 17 stuff. He is falling a little bit, again, just one spot, but it is a pretty big as a percentage of his ADP. What do we think? Can Diggs drafters expect to get Allen in the third round, or is that just a fantasy? What do we think? Is Allen's fall gonna continue? Davis, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll probably see, because the initial reaction of everyone I've talked to who's like, I haven't done any drafts. They open up Underdog, they go hop into a puppy, they go hop into a Best Ball Mania. They cannot believe the quarterback ADP, right? That just universally, that is the response. But as we outlined on last week's show, for like literally, we like went through the entire exercise. It is lit. Like Mahomes is not going to fall. This is the one
Mahomes
way
won't
he
fall,
could
yeah.
fall. The one way he could fall would be if people just are whatever. Travis Kelce's 34. Like, we're just going to stop drafting him. We're taking all these other guys instead of him. And if Kelce becomes like the 10th pick, that's a little bit too early to take Mahomes. So then you could see the Mahomes drafter be like, try and play the ADP game and just try and get him in the third round or whatever. Hurts, no way. Hurts is just, he's almost like cemented into the spot where he's going due to the two pressures of AJ Brown and Devonta Smith on the other side of him. But Allen doesn't have that same pressure, because I think you can easily tell yourself as like, I don't need to get Allen with Diggs, or just those ADPs don't perfectly line up, you know, the way the Kelce and the Mahomes ADP, if you pulled up a big board of ADP right now, they literally perfectly line up. So yeah, I think Allen will continue to fall. I think Taylor will probably fall a little bit more. The name on this list that doesn't make sense to me as a faller is Michael Mayer, because every day I wake up and Dalton Kincaid is like another 3 spots higher in the ADP refresh. Like it's insane.
Crazy. I think Knox is actually becoming a value now.
I agree.
He's on the fallers here. On the Allen thing, like, I do wonder, the one thing that could make the elite quarterbacks fall a bit is if Burrow falls a bit to the end of the fourth, because I did have a puppy where I went Jamar Chase, T Higgins, and I was like, I'm going for it. I'm gonna get Burrow, and I got Burrow. And to get like that double stack with a 4th round pick is pretty fun. And I think if like that becomes an option, even if you're not double stacking, even if you just go Chase or Higgins and you're able to get Burrow in the 4th, then I think it becomes like less of a priority to like grab an unstacked Allen or, unstack Mahomes and figure that out later. You're like, I can actually stack this up with the Burrow side. So that would be kind of one way, because on the other hand, though, like the Josh Allen thing, like Burrow has been going in kind of this no man's land where I was like, who is drafting Burrow stacked ever? Like, he must just be going unstacked in like every draft. So that makes it harder for me to see Allen falling all the way back to Diggs in the 3rd round, because I think someone at the 303 is just like, fuck it all. I'll stack.
Yeah, I think that's a thing where the solo Josh Allen is a lot more appealing than, the unstacked Joe Burrow. So I agree with Davis's case that, like, I think you can make an argument for why Allen falls to the mid-3rd. I don't think that's like the most likely. I think it's possible though. Whereas with Mahomes, I don't know, the Mahomes, again, with the week 17 stuff, I think, Jamar Chase Mahomes starts will be pretty popular. T Higgins Mahomes starts at the 2-3 turn will also be pretty popular. That I have a hard time seeing Mahomes slide all the way So yeah, we'll see though. The other thing that's maybe slightly interesting here, Dalvin Cook, I guess we don't have to talk about a ton. It's sort of the inverse of the Mattison stuff that we were just talking through. DJ Moore is sliding a little, and I think I'd attribute this to just some, probably honestly, Leone's tweet was a big part of this drop. Leone tweeted out that DJ Moore is just way behind. I think basically his case was, to paraphrase, even if you put in a really optimistic pass projection for the Bears, even if you really sort of tweak up DJ Moore's individual efficiency, this ADP just isn't justified by the projection and by their ETR ranking. So I think it's fair. I think Moore is really being pulled up by just the fact that the Justin Fields drafter wants to stack Fields and Moore. And I think his fair ADP is probably round and a half cheaper. Davis, I know Davis already mentioned DJ Moore. Pat, do you agree with Leone that Moore is overvalued at cost?
Yeah. I had Moore as kind of an early fifth type of value when I was tiering everything out in my ranks. But then I ended up having him ranked like pretty close to ADP because that general range is so gross, as we kind of outlined earlier. Like there's no one that really jumps out. And then I was like, well, I can also get the stack here with Fields. And if Moore beats expectations, I think he probably crushes expectations in a lot of those outcomes. Because like he could have a huge target share and Fields takes a step forward as a passer. And this is like kind of year one of Fields having a coaching staff who believes in him. It's like his first year in the NFL where that's the case. So I do think there's some really high-end ceiling outcomes that you get with Moore. And it's a bet on talent play, which I like. He's cheaper than he was last year when he had horrific quarterback play. So like a number of ways that I think I can see it hitting. On the other hand, like the math, Leone was just like, the math just straight up like doesn't work. Davis is out, Gretsch is out. Like I'm sitting alone here on DJ Moore Island. So
do they believe in him?
I think they believe in him, yeah, because they just traded away the number one overall pick. Like they could have traded Fields and started over. Like
I bet the market was way more hot for the number one pick than for Justin Fields.
Sure.
I would bet my bottom dollar the trade package was better.
But you're getting fired if Fields doesn't work out now. You're getting fired. So
no, I think you can sell it to the guys upstairs and say, if Fields sucks, you know what's coming? Caleb Williams, Drake May.
Well, all right. If you're the third worst team in the NFL, they're cleaning house.
They got extra ammo to trade. And the Arizona Cardinals might be one of those first two picks, and they have Kyler Murray.
Didn't the Cardinals trade away their pick? Am I wrong about that?
No.
Maybe I'm wrong about that.
The Cardinals have their pick and the Texans pick.
That's what I'm thinking. They have an extra pick. Okay.
They have an extra. Yeah.
So there's I agree with your. So I think Leone's micro-analysis is correct, that if you're doing projections, there's no way to make it work. I also agree with your macro analysis that the thing that you could just plug it into projections and make it work is, Justin Fields is actually good, right? Like if you press the actually good button inside the spreadsheet, DJ Moore looks a lot better. Yeah. I'm ambivalent on, is Justin Fields actually good though? I think he's an insanely talented rusher, but the sack rate is like, because I think not only do you learn from a sack rate that a guy makes a lot of negative plays, but it's also like just, an inability to see the field, like not understanding what's unfolding in front of him properly. And that would be bad for DJ Moore.
Yeah. And I think and probably the case that Leone makes too, is that even if pass attempts rise a bunch, like this Bears team, like people talk about how little the Falcons passed last year. The Bears were like a full 2.5 pass attempts per game less than the Falcons. Like they were truly like historically low in terms of pass attempts per game. Like I don't know, you have to say that Fields takes less sacks, scrambles less. They're more, philosophically inclined to throw the ball instead of like there's a lot of levers that have to go in Fields' way for Moore's routes and his receptions and everything to make sense by the math. So I don't know. I'm totally open to like Fields being a lot better than he was last year, but like it's not just being like a little bit better. It's like completely changing how they ran the offense like entirely.
Well, I also think you do, at least with Moore, have the thing of like he's been stuck in the Panthers with just like horrible quarterback play. About as bad as like a receiver could have over, a 3-year stretch.
Mm-hmm.
And the coaching has also not been great either. So if you do have, I think, a bit of upside with Moore, the talent being unlocked by a quarterback who isn't horrible. And there, so you can so that's why it is appealing to me, because it's not just like if Fields is good, because I'm not taking much Darnell Mooney. You know what I mean? Like it's to me, it's the bet on talent with DJ Moore. And then, you get the Justin Fields is actually good button clicked, and all of a sudden the math makes some sense. It still doesn't make a ton of sense though. Like my thing is I'm hoping he falls. I'm hoping the projections do their work.
He's going to fall.
And if you can, to me, if I can get him in the 5th round, I'm in again. I think I'm out for now in the 4th round. I think I'm just going to take other guys.
I think he's going to swing all the way around. Like DJ Moore is the epitome of like the guy who fantasy sickos on Twitter who are drafting in May, like who casual drafters are like, fuck DJ Moore, fuck that guy. He's been useless to me the past couple. Like
100%.
He's gonna fall. So like I just don't see that. That's why I'm like I'm gonna be able to get these stacks cheaper later. If for some reason he doesn't fall, I'll recorrect and get some of them at this price for the ceiling. But like I've been full fading just because like I'm convinced he's gonna fall, and maybe I'm wrong about that. We'll see, but I have strong conviction in that. Another funny one to mention here, Bryce Young falling just because he looked really small in a video is a pretty funny ADP movement. I don't know if you guys saw that video on Twitter, but hilarious. you couldn't see him behind his offensive lineman. I've talked about this before, but I like these rookie quarterbacks, Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. Their pass catchers are super cheap. The teams are super gross. I get it. If one of these guys is just really good as a rookie, and I know that historically rookie quarterbacks, it's not the best bet, but the prices are so cheap. The NFL clearly love these guys as prospects. I want to mix them in. I sort of view them along the lines of sort of like Stafford in that group of late quarterbacks that have some upside. I think I like Stafford a little bit better, but I do want some of these guys. You guys have thoughts on Bryce Young at this price?
I like both of them the same as you do. I mean, I think there's probably maybe like a little more upside with Young because I think they could lean into the pass a little bit more. Where I think that Shanahan style system, they're going to play it pretty conservatively throughout Stroud's entire rookie year. But then Stroud, you actually do have the fact that, he is bigger and could run a little bit more. He didn't really run a ton of college. That's the big debate, but he could. So and he's fun to stack up, man. I mean, with Young, you got to do Mingo, and then like I hate taking DJ Shark over Nico Collins, even if I am setting up a Young thing. You can go Nico Collins and Tank Dell as a backdoor
like
CJ Stroud stack, and it's so fun.
I like the tight end. I know you guys probably hate him, but I like the Hayden Hurst, Bryce Young stack.
Enjoy your 45% route rate.
Dude, who on the pay? Come on, guys. They paid him enough guaranteed. Who the fuck? Come on. He's gonna have
they've drafted tight ends like repeatedly, and Indianapolis, Mo Alley Cox, Kylan Granson.
Oh no, sorry. I mean
retired.
Who on this roster now is gonna play over Hayden Hurst?
Literally, whoever. I'm gonna pull up our lads, and whatever name I see is whoever.
Come on.
They play anybody.
You might not like it, but Hayden Hurst is gonna have the same role he had last year on the Bengals, which was a good role.
No, he will not.
Yeah, he is, dude.
No, he will not. That's not how this team is operating. I mean, this is a coaching staff thing, man. Ian Thomas, Tommy Tremble. Tommy Tremble's running like 35% of the routes because he's out there blocking. That's how they treat the tight end position. That's a philosophical thing.
He's picked 200. He's the starting tight end. Get out of here.
Enjoy it. You're gonna have a great time. 55% max.
Am I taking him like solo? No, but like these Carolina Panthers wide receivers.
Yeah, you're taking him with Adam Thielen. What could go wrong?
I'm not taking it with that. I'm taking it with Mingo. First of all, okay, who got the most guaranteed money this offseason at tight end?
Taysom Hill.
Hayden Hurst.
Taysom Hill.
Let's talk
It's
Taysom.
probably still Taysom Hill, isn't it?
No, it was Hayden Hurst.
I think Taysom Hill makes $15 million a year.
In terms of guaranteed money received this offseason,
this so bad.
Hayden Hurst got
sorry.
the most.
Taysom only makes $10 million. My bad.
Still,
my bad.
My point stands.
Dave, I want to kick it to you for Taysom Hill. He does show up here as a faller. What are the people doing here? You gonna make the case for Taysom?
What are we doing? He was the tight end 6 last year. What's the difference, dude?
I'm in. I'm still in.
What is the logic for literally seeing Taysom break the game multiple times last season? Is it just, I guess people are scared that Jamal Williams spells the end for Taysom at the goal line? Like the whole argument against drafting Taysom last year when he was cheap was, Sean Payton's not the coach anymore. So
exactly
this new coaching staff. No, dude, it's the same. You want to talk about fucking institutional memory? The Saints are the most institutional memory ass team in the league. Like Taysom on that roster, he wears number 7, dude. What do you want him to do? Like he's gonna be Taysom.
Yeah, and probably helps that Kamara's going to get suspended for a huge chunk of the season.
Yeah, 100%.
He's going to have a goal line package. He's 100% going to have a goal line package.
What? Oh, Derek Carr is so good. You can't take Derek Carr off the field. Like, no, come on.
Yeah.
Derek Carr is Andy Dalton. Like, it's the same thing.
He's gonna have he'll mix in like 1 or 2 deep touchdowns per year too. Like he does that every year. You're not gonna be able to predict it. Would you ever start him in a managed league? No, but in best ball, it's just I think what he's actually down on is like the Foster Moreau signing, which is just a complete misunderstanding of what Taysom Hill's role is. He's not he does not compete with Foster Moreau for snaps.
He isn't a tight end.
Yeah, he isn't a tight end. He's not a tight end.
I think a great way for people to think about him would be he is Dexter McCluster, but 240 pounds. I think that would be a great way for people to think about. Taysom Hill is Kadarius Toney on the Saints. He just has to score like 6 touchdowns. You want to talk about a target per route run king, Taysom Hill.
Yeah. It's so funny the amount of that he's listed as a tight end. He had 13 and 6 targets the past 2 years. I think he has more pass attempts than targets, probably, or at least close to it. I never understood this tight end listing, but I love it. I'm going to keep drafting him.
It makes no sense. I mean, imagine if Cordell Patterson was listed as a tight end.
I draft him in the
Isn't
50s.
That sort of similar? I think the Bijan thing makes it tougher, but that's like he's like a weapon. He's not a tight end.
Yeah.
It's dumb.
It really shouldn't be listed as a tight end.
He really should. I understand why they listed him. I understand why they listed him there last year, but he should be listed as a running back. Probably.
Yeah, he's a running back. He's a running back.
Yeah. I mean, he should be listed he's a quarter. He takes snaps at quarterback more than anything else,
I believe the fantasy thing takes
He's like a wildcat running back.
I believe they're listed the way the teams list them. The teams send their stuff into the NFL. I think that's how it works, or how the distinctions or the designations are done. And I think the Saints list him at tight end. Yeah.
And sorry, CR, not to pick on you, but saying that they replaced Taysom by signing tight ends is missing the point that Taysom is not a tight. He's not Foster Moreau and Juwan Johnson.
It's just a fundamental misunderstanding of what Taysom's role is on this team, which is he's not a tight end, he's not a running back, he's not a wide receiver, he's not a quarterback. He is probably the only guy in the NFL right now that I would say you can actually give him the designation of offensive weapon. That's what he is. He's there to play about 15 snaps a game and to be used in creative ways. That's it.
And I think to say that he his role to snaps are gone because they brought in Jamal Williams and Kendra Miller. I think you got to understand that Dennis Allen has his Taysom plays first. Those are ahead of whatever Kendra Miller's doing.
The Taysom plays. I mean, again, to really drive this point home, the guy who is the offensive coordinator of the Saints is the same guy who's been offensive coordinator forever.
Right.
It's not like Sean Payton left and they hired a brand new staff. Everyone just moved up one rung. Sean Payton left and everyone got a promotion. That's all. Right. It's not
Including
a brand.
Taysom Hill.
Yeah.
Mid-season trade. Russell Wilson's not working out. Sean Payton trades a 7th round pick for Taysom Hill.
Who says no?
Who says no? It's pretty good.
And the thing is, you don't have to make this case anymore because it's you don't need it. But like the out of him starting games at quarterback is still it requires multiple injuries, yes, but multiple quarterbacks on teams get injured every year. Like it's not impossible that we get to weeks 15 through 17 and Taysom Hill starting a game at quarterback. It's straight up, it's not likely, but that's in the range of outcomes too. So it's just there's a lot of
possible. It is possible.
Yeah.
And if that happens, like you will need to have Taysom Hill. Like you'll just need to have him.
If Taysom Hill scores 19 points in week 17, what do you think the odds are of him being on the winning team? Like pretty fucking high.
Pretty high. Although it depends a little bit how. No, but I mean, he's such a late round pick. He'll probably be decently owned in the final.
Yep.
Just by pure randomness.
I don't know why I'm still triggered by the chat here, but guys, like Taysom Hill is not taking snaps at running. He's not in at running.
No, I didn't ignore it. Yeah,
we're not ignoring
2-down rookie and Jamal Williams. Whatever.
People watched Jamal Williams score 15 1-yard touchdowns last season and lost their minds. Jamal Williams is this is Evan Silva's fault. It's Evan Silva's fault for making that bet on Jamal Williams to lead the NFL in touchdowns and getting everyone to sweat along with it. Like. Jamal Williams is fine. He's a perfectly cromulent running back, but they're not throwing out the Taysom Hill plays because Jamal Williams is on the roster.
Exactly. They have their little Taysom Hill thing, and they clearly like doing it. Like Henry Miller and Jamal Williams are not changing that. If Kamara was there for the full season, like okay, now I'd be a little bit more persuaded. But yeah. By the way, Evan Silva texted me last night saying that the goddamn ship chasers have ruined fantasy football.
Again.
We got to get Silva on the show and just show him some of these like wide receiver ADPs and just get him to talk about it. Could be funny.
Let's see if we can get his camera turned on first.
All right, let's round out talking through some of the team stuff. Not huge movement here. But again, looking at the double stack average ADPs, I think, again, the thing that stands out to me is like these there's a lot of ambiguous quarterback situations that, like Davis was mentioning, you look at the wide receivers sort of in that 5th, 6th round range, even 4th round. It's just tough because you take Terry McLaurin and you don't feel good about picking a quarterback. You take Chris Godwin, you don't feel good about taking a quarterback. And there's just a lot of those teams: Tennessee, Tampa Bay, Washington, Atlanta. You can throw New England in there if you want. San Francisco is certainly in that mix of uncertain quarterback situations. So yeah, that's kind of my takeaway, is that I want to not be so worried about those teams and just stack them up without the quarterbacks like Pat has mentioned, because I think their prices are probably like a little depressed as a result of that. But yeah,
I guess what I would say is, like, for me, these teams aren't all in the same bucket. Like, I think Tampa Bay is going to be a train wreck. I don't think they have any interest in being good. I think that if maybe Godwin or Evans, could get traded, that's like your best out for them having a good season. I just think it's going to be really gross. Davis, you can push back on this because I'm slandering the hell out of Baker Mayfield right now, but when I look at Washington,
how much worse are they going to be than what they were last year? They were a fucking shitty team last year.
Way worse. Baker was so bad last year. I honestly think it'll be disgusting. But the Washington, there's 2 outs to good quarterback play there, and you don't have to predict it. You just need the good quarterback play for drafting Dotson and McLaurin. I like both. San Francisco, I mean, we've got 2.5 outs. I don't think Darnold counts as a full out, but like there's maybe a little half extra bonus there.
He counts.
All right. So then 3 outs to good quarterback play. And I mean, those guys, if you're getting any kind of discount because the quarterback's uncertain, like hell yeah. But yeah, I'm kind of more like, which of these offenses do I think can be pretty good, even if I can't predict who their quarterback is going to be in every single week.
Yeah. I think San Francisco is probably the best argument for that, where the markets still view, like, look at the Super Bowl odds. San Francisco, I think they're 4th in Super Bowl odds behind just the Eagles, Bills, Chiefs right now. So unless the market's wrong, like they're going to be good regardless of who's playing quarterback. I mean, I wouldn't say with that much certainty, but I think they're very likely to be good regardless of who's playing quarterback. So you're going to want some of those pieces on San Francisco. And yeah, maybe just wait till I think we'll have more certainty at some point on the quarterback situation. You can wait before you take your guesses at quarterback there. Maybe the one exception to that is like if Lance is named the starter and he's like, they have confidence in him throughout the whole season, he would shoot way up. So like maybe there's some argument to getting some Lance now, but I'm not really.
Yeah. What do you think about that? This is actually the one time where I think Lance might make sense now. Like I haven't been in on Lance, but at the 18th round price, like there is a payoff now. It's still thin though for him to deliver on it, but he could.
What would Lance's ADP be if tomorrow Brock Purdy says, I have an infection in my surgery. I have to have another surgery to take care of it. They got to do whatever. They got to clean it out. I'm not going to be back until 2024. What is Lance's ADP?
I still think like 120. Like I don't think
I was going to say, can we meme him? Can we meme him to Anthony Richardson price or not?
I don't think we can.
I don't
think we can anymore. I think he's like capped at like the Geno range. Honestly, like I kind of don't see him getting ahead of. I'm not saying that's my personal ranking. I'm saying like what I think the market would do in that situation.
Yeah, I think he would be treated somewhat similarly to Fields last year, but then ultimately go ahead of where Fields went last year because the people would just bet on the rushing. So, yeah, I don't think he would go ahead of Richardson, but I think he would probably end up in the high 90s.
The thing is, like, I feel like I almost have to tell a story where, like, somehow Darnold gets traded and Purdy's, like, arm falls off. Because, like, I think that Darnold thing,
if that happened, then I think he's, like, going where Richardson's going.
Yeah, but I'm saying Richardson's, like, 86 now. So, like, I don't... Yeah, I'd agree.
Lance would be, like, 99 or something.
Yeah. But I'm saying if only one of those things happen, I think you need both those quarterbacks to get out of the way for people to have confidence in Lance as a top 100 pick. I think people, if Purdy
had confidence in him as a top 100 pick like 2 months ago for some fucking reason.
Yeah, but we've bullied them since then. They're not going to be doing that anymore.
No, I think they're coming right back. They're coming right back if Purdy, if there was no Purdy, he's not available till 2024. I don't think Sam Darnold is keeping much of a cap on his ADP, which makes him. I think it puts him back in the conversation a little as an 18th rounder.
But I guess we're both saying
I haven't taken him, but
he's not going to shoot. Like, okay, maybe you're right that he shoots up to like pick 100 or pick 90, but like, sure, okay, that's great if you took a bunch of Lance and he shoots up till then, but like, it's not that amazing. I guess is what I'm saying. Is like, it still feels like more. The payoff is not quite worth the risk because I think it's pretty. I don't know. We've gotten positive news on Purdy so far. I maybe think Darnold's a bigger factor than you do, Pat, but I don't know. I don't think the payoff's worth like the 50 jump in ADP is worth the risk of dead roster spot.
One issue with it is that it's a 3 quarterback build. And so, yeah, you got a guy who's going maybe as like a 9th round pick or whatever now, but you wasted probably a 10th round pick on a quarterback who you don't need anymore because you got Lance at this great price. So like, you know what I mean? Like your payoff isn't as big even as it seems because you still are the 3 quarterback build. And like, that could have been an awesome running back pick that you don't get to swap out now.
Yeah. Makes sense. All right. Last couple questions here. Davis, do you have a stack here that you like that's perhaps undervalued towards the far right side of the chart?
Denver to me is like the one team where I'm like, yeah, I can see Russell Wilson returning to being the quarterback 8 with competent head coaching. Judy, Sutton, Mims, Dulcich, Pirine. They're all the whole offense is priced other than Judy. Judy, you could say is like, I mean, he had 950 yards and 6 touchdowns last year. Like he was still kind of decent. Sutton really fell off, but you could the case is pretty simple, which is just Hackett is basically Urban Meyer. You know, he's Michael Scott. He just everything around him grinds to a halt because he was so bad at his job. Sean Payton comes in, figures it out, is like, Russ, I know you can still do this, yada yada, and they're the Seahawks again, basically, right? Like you can see it. I'm not saying it's the most likely scenario, but you can see it. And I actually, very similar to how the Seahawks ended up being all these league winners last year, because everyone was so cheap, because everyone was so convinced they were going to be terrible. And sort of unlike, the Texans, I don't think have any path to being a top 10 offense. The Panthers, no path. Titans, no path. Buccaneers, no path. Washington, no path, right? I actually think you can see the path, right, for Denver. Like the offensive line's pretty good. They have a lot of good offensive linemen. Sean Payton is a very good coach who got really good results out of not only like peak Drew Brees, but Sean Payton adjusted really well when Brees totally lost his fastball. They were still good on offense when Brees really could barely still play.
What's Russ's buy-in on the playbook stuff? That's going to matter so much, because like Brees and Payton were like, on the same exact page as all
Sean
that.
Payton comes in and says, Russ, you fucking embarrassed yourself last year. You were embarrassing. You made this whole big deal. You got your own office. We did everything you wanted. And you were embarrassing. You embarrassed yourself in front of everyone, and I can save you. If you buy into me, I can bring you what you want. That's what it. And I don't know if Russ will buy it. I don't know if he is humble enough to do that, but that's the sell.
He seems really
pitch.
grounded. Yeah, I'm gonna. I'm just a little worried.
That was great. That was so good.
I mean, I'm a little worried that he was calling audibles from Seattle to his Denver receivers. Like, it seems like a pretty big red flag. I'm like a little hesitant to go with the Russ part of it, but I'm interested in the Denver stuff. Like, I kind of like, this is one where I like doing Herbert and bringing Denver stuff back. And I also like stacking up the Chargers Broncos game without either quarterback, especially I have an elite quarterback. And I'm like, okay, Russ, like maybe you have a good year, but I don't think you're passing Allen. I'd rather have Allen in week 17. So, or Mahomes or Hurts or Lamar or whatever. So that's how I've been hesitant to take Russ, but I think if Russ has a good year, he could have a very good year. So I do. Yeah. I don't mind it at all.
I like the bet. It does feel a little like you don't need that much. The bet is pretty simple. It's just like Russ isn't horrible anymore. Like his whole career, he's been pretty good. They simplify the playbook. And I think this is a little anecdotal. I don't have the numbers to back it up, but Russ did get a little bit better towards the end of the last year. I don't think I'm making that up. Like week 17, he had a good game. No one had him who was still alive, but he had a pretty good game. So I like the Denver stuff.
Yeah.
Pat, any teams you want to make a case for here? I know we've talked through a lot, but
I think I kind of snuck mine in. I guess I'd say Green Bay is kind of interesting where, like, I think Jordan Love gives you a little bit of rushing upside. Nothing crazy, but like just maybe a touch, certainly more than like Kenny Pickett. And they're slightly cheaper than the Steelers stack. And you can get, I think Jaden Reed is really nice to tackle on. Christian Watson, I've already taken him a decent amount. Like in that spot, I'm breaking ties towards him just for the weekly upside. And then part of it too is like, I know I can get Jordan Love late. If I've gone with an elite quarterback, Love is pretty interesting as like, actually maybe has a little bit of a weekly ceiling. And even if he stinks, he's going to start all year. So I got the job security thing locked up. And then, like Romeo Doubs is like fine. He strikes me as slightly overpriced, but he will run routes. And Jaden Reed will also run routes. So and they've talked up his returning ability and everything.
Why is the market so certain that Jaden Reed is going to beat Doubs out for those?
Well, they're actually not. Doubs is like 30 picks more expensive or something like that.
But doesn't that indicate sort of what we were just talking about with Keenan Allen, like the rookie comes on at the end of the year type thing?
I mean, I think if the question is, does Reed beat Doubs out? I think he's the favorite to beat Doubs out by the end of the year. I mean, they've picked him in the early second round, mid second round. Doubs was the 4th round pick. Doubs was fine last year, but to me, his rookie year didn't profile as something where he's going to stop a second round rookie from getting on the field. I don't know. I just think Dobbs' talent is like okay, and the Packers just told us they think Reed's talent is better than Dobbs by where they drafted him. So I think Reed is favorite for more routes.
So if I can give the bull case for Dobbs, who I do like, it's week 3. Packers already have a whole infirmary room full of injured wide receivers. They're playing against Tampa Bay, who at the time we thought was good. And the Packers opened their drive, the scripted drive they did. Dobbs got 4 targets on the opening drive and caps it off with a touchdown. And I just remember thinking, like, Rodgers hates every young guy he's ever played with. Like, there's got to just be something impressive he's doing now. And he had another good game the next week. And then basically we never heard from him again because Christian Watson started to break out and they started doing more 2 tight end stuff. But I just, that moment of being like, and like, obviously this is like a weird thing where like when you watch the games, you can remember stuff that's actually extraneous and doesn't matter at all. But I just remember being like really impressed by that. And I don't know. I think he's good. I just think he like kind of was just impressive to me watching him too.
I struggle with the day 3 guys because like it's such a high bar to clear for them to really become anything to where like Dobbs as a day 3 pick is already a hit. Like if he basically does nothing for the rest of his career, but he like if he like stays in the fantasy football player pool for like another season after this, he's like a huge hit. Like that's how little we usually expect. And the fact that they then drafted, they have 2 other second-round picks that he's competing with at the wide receiver position. I just think like kind of the base rate argument against Dobbs just doesn't feel very good to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, so the numbers I look at, you look at yards per route run, yards per game, targets per route run, that type of stuff. If you filter for all rookies that had like at least 200 routes, Dobbs profiles is like a 75th percentile rookie season, which is fine, right? But it's not great. It's clearly behind guys like Christian Watson, Wilson, London, Olave. Obviously, like no one's comparing them Dobbs to those guys anyways. But yeah, to me, it's just, I think I'm with Pat that like it's a somewhat promising rookie year, but I'm just concerned that they immediately, took another wide receiver in the second round. To the Green Bay point, one thing I wanted to add on is I think Musgrave is actually an interesting 18th round tight end. If you have a Green Bay stack, they took him pick 42 overall. He's not getting drafted much. There's no tight ends on that roster. They basically took 2 rookies, Tyler Kraft, I think. Tucker.
That's what concerns me is that they doubled up. They took 2 bites of the apple, I think.
That's fair. But if you look at their roster, like it's literally like there's nothing. There's some like passing specialist guys. Like I think DeGuara is still there. Yeah. But like it's going to be one of those 2 guys. And yeah, I don't know. 18th round tight ends. You're not getting guys with like completely locked in role. He's not my favorite 18th tight end in a vacuum. I'm just saying like in Jordan Love stacks, I think it's a pretty interesting way to, fill out your onesie positions for pretty cheap. So I'll add that on for Green Bay.
Yeah, I think both guys are kind of on my watch list right now because when they talked about drafting them, they were like, they both are inline regular tight ends. They weren't like Musgrave's going to be in the slot, like Tucker's going to be in line. They're essentially like duplicates. Like we want a tight end, so we drafted 2. So I think like my guess is that we start to hear from the beats like Musgrave's firmly ahead or Tucker's firmly ahead, and then I'm taking that guy. But I don't want that. I don't want to draft the wrong tight end there. I think I'm just playing a little more conservatively than you are, maybe.
Yeah, that's fair. Maybe I should wait. I think I've taken him once in a love stack, but I see your point. There's certainly risk. There's certainly risk there. I don't have to be guessing on that now. I could probably wait a little bit and have more confidence. Cool. Let's not much to talk about on other team ADPs. Positional stuff I'll hit on quickly. We had this discussion last week, but the same kind of story holds true where if you kind of want to look at last year's ADPs and compare them to this year, the basic story is that quarterback ones are much more expensive than they were last year. They're going at on average around pick 55 this year. Last year it was like pick 65. So the top 12 quarterbacks are like a full round more expensive than last year. the running back ones are cheaper. The running back 2s are cheaper. And the wide receiver 1s are more expensive. So I think this is drafters reacting to both, early, heavy wide receiver builds had good advance rates last year. Elite QBs had good advance rates last year. So drafters are pushing those two groups up, and they're pushing down sort of running backs on the other side. Tight ends are pretty close to the cost they were last year. I think, it depends how you look at it.
Hayden had a good chart on this with once you take out Kelsey, everyone's falling.
Exactly. Yeah, I would definitely recommend looking at Hayden's chart. It has a little bit more granularity than this does. But yeah, unless anyone wants to say something here, we might as well get into our favorite ADP values. Anybody have one prepped and ready to go? Pat, you want to give your favorite ADP value?
Sure. So we talked Denver. I'll go Marvin Mims, who I think there's going to be a drumbeat. The drumbeat's already starting. Cecil Lammey had a report out saying he thinks that Marvin Mims could be the best wide receiver on the Broncos.
Corinne, I think we gotta. This is KJ Hamler. I think we need to back off.
Hey, I'm playing a game where I want closing line value, and I think we're gonna get closing line value here with Marvin Mims. I mean, I actually don't think he's KJ Hamler. Like the thing about him is that he's an outside, undersized, deep threat, but like they're
dude, he's literally KJ Hamler.
Yards after the catch also sort of similar to KJ Hamler. But like he's supposed to be a guy who gets open, like that's the big thing. That's what Peyton talked about, separating him from the pack of these other wide receivers in the class. He was a second-round pick. They traded up for him. Sean Payton's handpicked wide receiver for this for his first year there. Clearly not like in love with the guys already there. They've already been kind of shopped around. So I think that Marvin Mims will be a pretty big riser throughout the course of this summer. I do think you're going to hear like he looks good, he's separating, and they have a plan for this guy. We've already heard that stuff, and I think we're going to keep hearing it. It's going to keep getting louder. I mean, his ADP is like 172. I mean, I think he could be significantly higher. Like I think he could be like 11th, 12th round pick by the end of this.
Don't we have to buy into either him having the ability to outproduce Cortland Sutton or the Denver offense feeding 5 skill position players?
Well, we've also, I've heard from, listen to the Roto World podcast, and like, the sentiment on Sutton does not appear overly positive. People are like, I think he might just be done.
Yeah.
I think the injuries I think Sutton was really good at one point in his career, but it's now what is it, like year 4 coming off the ACL tear? Like, I don't know, man. It's not looking great for him to come back to what he used to be, which is kind of sad.
And I think if you're hearing it's Mims from, the training camp reports, like Sutton.
Yeah, here's the thing on Denver beat writers. I don't trust them. I don't trust any one of them because they all got the Alberto Dulcich shit.
Oh, you're just snake betting Alberto.
Oh, did they? Did they?
Yes. Yes. Don't you dare. This is like this. Don't you gaslight me, because they all said the same shit before preseason, which is Albert's been amazing. He's done everything the coaching staff has wanted him to do. They did the joint practice with the Cowboys, and they all were like, Alberto, tight end 1, right? And then he plays in the 4th quarter of the 3rd preseason game, and then they all pretended the whole time that they knew that was happening. They all, to a man, did it.
Listen, anyone who watched Nathaniel Hackett hug Greg Dulcich and say, "Look at that hair! Look at that hair!"
Are you worried? Are you worried that Sean Payton is not going to have the same affinity for Dulcich as Hackett?
I am. I legit. He's been a faller, and I've taken some of them, but I think I never loved Greg Dulcich.
I never learned, because now I'm jamming Dulcich, right? I never learn. I never take the right lesson away.
From that, so one final word on Mims. Like you look at, and this applies to Jaden Reed too, but drafters are so like caught on to the round 1, round 2 wide receivers now that like it's tough to find value. Mims and Reed are the guys where if you just plotted draft capital versus ADP, they're the two guys that really haven't been priced up much. And I think people are probably going to just hammer them at some point. So
Rashee Rice is going 129. And
yeah.
I literally don't think there's a single person in the fantasy industry who had Rice ranked ahead of Mims in their pre-draft ranks. And they both were second round picks. Like there's a 50 spot gap in ADP between these guys. Like it's just not going to hold.
So you're saying Russell Wilson is better than Patrick Mahomes? Is that the argument you're
I'm
making?
saying 50 spots is a hell of a discount. A hell of a discount to get on a guy who also has good draft capital and we think is a better pure talent.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think Mims is a pretty good bet for ADP value. Davis, hit us with yours. Who's your favorite ADP value on the board right now?
Well, Pat just did a sexy young rookie. I'm gonna go the exact opposite way. Jeff Wilson Jr. I mean, this shit is so obvious, dude. Devin Achane is the running back 35. Like, how certain are we that he even gets like 100 touches as a rookie? You know, like I think he's like a splash player, right? Yeah. He's a great like for like replacement for Mostert. I think that's sort of what they see there. But come like week 3, Jeff Wilson Jr., 12 carries, 63 yards, 2 catches, 8 yards, and a touchdown. Like just like pencil that shit in. And the more we get closer to the season and the more people stop wish casting and the more they live in the reality of what's actually going to happen, and Jeff Wilson Jr. is going to go from like running back 55 to running back 41. It's just a tale as old as time. Like I'm Leone right now. I'm the guy. I'm the one being like, I know Ashane's fun, but just be realistic, and it's going to be Jeff Wilson Jr. Like it is what it is.
Are you taking him over Mostert?
No, because you don't even have to.
Okay.
You can take both of them. At running back, I have 26% Jeff Wilson Jr., but I have 16% Raheem Mostert. Because I literally think ADP, like, it's just backwards. Like,
yeah, I'm taking the other two guys too. I'm taking Mostert and Wilson. Yeah.
I like Ashane just fine, but I like Damian Harris a lot, and he goes like 10 picks later.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I like Harris too.
I mean, we kind of have learned this, like anytime there's an offense that projects to score a ton of points and doesn't have like the quarterback goal line threat, like Tua's not running in touchdowns and their top running back is going at 110 ADP, just like hammer all those guys. Like we saw that in years past with the Bucs where like both Rojo and Fournette were, I don't even think they were this cheap, but they were both really cheap one year. Like I hammered both of them. Like good off. It's just
Terry and Moss that one year.
Yeah, exactly.
And neither was this cheap either, but Singletary was a massive hit.
It's just so simple. Like people are, throwing their hands up with uncertainty, but like one of Wilson, Mostert, or Ashane, I think Ashane's price is fine too. I don't love him as much as other two guys, but like one of Wilson or Mostert, I think, is scoring a good chunk of touchdowns for this team, and multi-touchdown upside this late at running back is pretty appealing to me. So
apparently my rankings are pushing everyone to A-Chain and not the other two. So all right, I'm gonna tweak that. Thank you.
But I don't hate, like, I don't think any of us hate A-Chain. I think I can talk myself into him too, but albeit probably
I do like him. Yeah, I do like him, but yeah.
All right. I'll talk about someone who's a little higher up boards. Again, this game, we're going percentage of ADP increase. So someone like this could still be a big value. I'm going with Rhamondre, pick 30. I was just listening to Pete's Best Ball Breakfast. I think Rhamondre is his highest exposure running back at like 40% or something. I just straight up don't get it with Rhamondre. I sort of had a parody thread about this over the weekend, but all the cases against him, I think, are just like logical fallacy after logical fallacy. Like who in the Patriots backfield is going to steal pass catching or goal line work for Rhamondre? Like you got to squint really hard to tell yourself that story. And number two, like the Patriots, I don't think project to be this amazing offense, but I think with a real offensive coordinator, we saw this in 2021 when Mac Jones had a offensive coordinator. This team was top 10 in offensive scoring. The running back scored a bunch of touchdowns. I think it's a team that's going to filter their offense through the running back because they don't really have skilled wide receivers. Rhamondre to me still projects as having a pretty big receiving role. So, man, I just don't get it. Like, you can start your draft, like if you want to start your draft 2 wide receivers and grab Rhamondre, I just think like you're kind of stealing ADP value away from the rest of the room. He's just, I think projections will drive him up. He's such an obvious value to me. But I think, the anti-Pats bias is maybe where I fail to get ADP value here. I think people maybe just say Belichick running backs and that keeps him low. But I don't get it. I'll have a ton of them at this price.
Yeah, I mean, he's an easy click right now. I guess I was kind of like amused that people, when I tweeted out like a picture of a screenshot of I had Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and Rhamondre as my start, and I got like people pushing back like on Rhamondre as like going too high.
Yeah,
and that was kind of shocking to me, like because we are in a bubble and we're projecting essentially like what things look like once the bubble gets bigger, once more people come into the space. And I was kind of shocked that like people who aren't drafting a ton right now are like, oof, that's high for Rhamondre. I was thinking they'd be like, oh, Rhamondre in the third. That seems nice. So, I mean, the closing line value is not up to us. You know what I mean? It's up to other people. So that perception was at least made me like kind of double, like I was like, maybe I need to like double check my assumption that people are going to want Rhamondre in the second round. The normies, I mean.
Yeah, no, that's certainly fair. I think it's possible that people don't like Rhamondre. The casual players don't like him as much. So I think, that's it. But if he stays at pick 30, I guess I don't really see him falling. And maybe now we're going outside the scope of our game, but I just think he's like a great pick regardless. So I'll probably end up with a ton of him this year if that casual sentiment keeps him down. Like he was in the most dysfunctional, like one of the most dysfunctional offenses we've seen last year and still would be. I think if he does what he did last year, it's not like amazing in the third round, but you're not like burned by it completely. And I think there's a lot more upside there. So we'll see. Anyways, we'll get out of here. Pat, what do you have coming up this week for Leg Up?
Yeah, so I'm going to be working on some of the stuff that I've talked about. I don't know if I'll have it out this week. On kind of the next 2 pieces I'm working on are how to attack the elite quarterback ADP this year, and also something on late round picks. But I did have an article last week on elite tight end, which I think is a big edge, and laying out the case for that. So check that out on the site. I'll probably put out a tweet thread on that, summarizing some of the findings in the next day or two. Underdog credits are still available. You can get a $50 Underdog credit by signing up right now. If you go to legendaryupside.com/early, you can get $30 off your first year. It takes it down to $69. If you're on Underdog, you can get $50 Underdog credit as well. So pretty awesome time to sign up. You can also get 40% off Spike Week with code LEGUP. So this is kind of like the time to sign up if you're going to do it. Limited credits on those, on how many Underdogs credits I have, and they're going pretty quickly, but there are still some available.
Awesome.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Davis, anything for you with your newsletter, Sports Grid? Anything going up this week?
Yeah, Sports Grid Fantasy Football Podcast. We'll have at least one episode out this week. Jeff Edelstein from Roto Grinders and Scores and Odds is coming on the Takecast this week. I'm very excited to chat with him, and I've been working on dynasty rankings because we're in the middle of dynasty season, and I'm trying to make all these trades and everything, and don't really know how I feel relative to the market. So that'll be out on something. They just need to be. If I'm going to do the work, I'm going to publish them somewhere for sure.
Makes sense. Awesome. Well, we'll here at ADP Chasing, we'll be back next Monday. Obviously, Ship Chasing coming up this Wednesday. And yeah, I will be on Twitter continuing to alienate my followers with this horrible Week 17 bit. You can find me there. Anyways, for Pat, it's going well so far. Yeah. Going for Pat, for Davis. This is ADP Chasing. We'll be back next week.